In this video, I am going to provide you with a method that can be used to make a stairway wider. And what I'm basically going to do is figure out the angle here of the bottom and the top and create a board that we can screw into place, and then just simply grab a pencil and trace the put a couple of marks on the board, trace the treads and risers, and then subtract the thickness of the treads and risers from that board to create a stair stringer that should be perfect. And the reason why we're going to do that instead of using math, it's not uncommon for the previous stair builder to have made a mistake, or for you to make a mistake if you were going to lay out the stair stringer. And by all means, if you think you can lay out the stair stringer with standard methods, then stop watching the video right now and go for it. Give it a shot. But for those of you who have a difficult time trying to figure out how to lay out stringers and cut stairs, then this method just might help you out. So what we're going to do is start with a framing square. And we're going to put the framing square in a position. In this framing square, you're simply going to put it on the ground like this, and you can slide it over. I'm actually going to use the tread size. We have a 10-inch wide tread and a 7.5-inch riser on the existing stairway. And you can do the same thing. Grab a tape measure and measure the tread. If it's 10 inches, then use the 10 inches and of course you can always check your riser. Or start with your riser. If your riser is 7.5 inches, then line up the 7.5 inches down here, and you're good to go. But as long as the square is like this on the ground, and you can grab the two measurements here, you're going to be able to create the angle that you're looking for. So this isn't it isn't rocket science here. 7.5 inches. So we're going to start with that. And then we're simply going to transfer these measurements over to a board that's similar or the same thickness. If you have a 2x12, use a 2x12 or a 2x14, and more on that here in a little bit. Just line it up, 10 inches, 7.5 inches, and then you're going to make a mark. Just kind of showing you what we're doing, zooming in, 7.5 inches, 10 inches, and then now it is time to make a mark. And of course, here are our lines. This is going to be the bottom of the stair stringer, and this is going to be the point that we are going to be starting with. So this point right here will represent this right here on our existing stair stringer. And I want to point out that if you have a ledger, you can always just simply extend it by nailing another piece on. If you have a 2x12, you might need to add a couple of supporting studs or blocks and then put the ledger on. If not, you're going to have to adjust the measurements that I'm going to show you in a different way. So, you should be able to figure it out, because we're just simply going to measure from one point to another point on our existing stringer. And you can always measure from this point here to this point. You can measure from this point to this point, from this point to this point, and from this one here to here. Because the main thing you want to do is just get a board with a bottom and a top that you're going to be able to slide in and use as a pattern. And you might need to cut a couple of different boards to do this also. So let's go ahead and take our 6 foot 1 3/8 of an inch measurement, and you can see where we are measuring from here, and transfer it down to our new stair stringer. So you're just going to create a line that's going to be parallel to the edge here, and then transfer the marks. Then you are going to position the square in the same way as you did down here, with the 10 inches for our tread and our 7.5 inches for our riser. And you're just simply going to line it up at this point here. And of course, after we remove the square, it should look something like this. And by now you should be starting to get a little clearer picture of what we're trying to do. The next step will simply be to extend the lines on both sides. And by now you should be starting to get a pretty good idea how the stair stringer here is going to work. So this, of course, is the bottom. This point right here would line up with this. And this point here would line up with this here. And then the back of the stringer, front of the ledger, would be right over here. And then we can cut the stringer pattern. But kind of want to show you that I'm going to actually go over it here. But if you're really confident, you can go ahead and cut this. But I wouldn't do that. I would just cut it like this. And it'll make sense here a little more. So it's not like you're going to watch this video and do it step by step. Watch the entire video. Then go back and watch it again if you need to. Or then go through it step by step. But the reason why I'm not going to want you to do this here will become pretty obvious here in a few seconds. Now let's go ahead and put it into the position. And this again should start to make a little more sense. And I just kind of want to point out that everything looks like it's close here. And this one right here looks like it's right on the money. But it is off a little. I measured the distance here, and we were at a 1/2 inch from the top of the tread to the point here on the stringer. And up here it was 1/4 inch. And you might not be able to see it because of the drawing. And this isn't going to be a life or death situation. We're going to be able to make adjustments for this and still use this board here. But I just wanted to show you that you could run into a few problems if you do this and you cut it, and let's just say that you're back here about 1/4 inch, the angle is wrong, then you're going to have to either get rid of this board or you're going to be adding some shims to it to make it work. So try to avoid doing this and do this instead, and then you can tack it on with some nails or screw it to the existing stairway because you're going to need to remove this. And of course, the next step will simply be to grab a pencil and trace all the way down, right up against the risers and the treads. And you should end up with something like this. Now keep in mind that you don't want to cut this right here. We still need to subtract for the thickness of our treads and our risers. And by simply pulling the existing stringer over to here, you can see right here, I pulled it over to there. You can see what I'm talking about. We still need to cut a little more out of the stringer. So here's the existing stringer. Here are our marks, and I'm just we're not using this stringer. This is just for a reference point. Once I take it away, you'll see what I'm talking about. So now we have the marks that for the treads and the risers that we will need to cut. Now I want to point out that, and I already mentioned this, but I wanted to point out that once you cut this board here, you can use it as a pattern to cut another board if you're going to use it. So let's just say that you do everything, you get a pattern that you like, but you need it to be a little thicker here. You're not happy with it. Because you're cutting this much more out of the 2x12, then simply take the pattern, put it on top of another 2x12, and then line the front points up with the edge of the 2x12. So again, you're going to use this as a pattern. Set it on top of another 2x12, move the point over, don't line the back of it up, line the points up with the front, and then trace the stringer, trace the new stringer. And then of course, when you cut that, you're going to have a little thicker area here. So if this is about a 1/2 inch here, and on this one here, this is about 3.5 inches. Once you move the stringer forward, you're going to have 4 inches here, which is going to make the stairway a little stronger. And after you cut your stair stringer, you can position it, and do not nail the heck out of this thing until you have double checked every point on it. make sure that when you set the stairway or the stringer into its position, that everything lines up. For example, if the stringer is an eighth of an inch or a quarter of an inch higher than it needs to be, you can simply cut a little more off. Just make sure that whatever you do to one stringer, you do it to the other stringer. And let's just say that the stringer is in about a quarter of an inch. You need to add a quarter of an inch to it. Just add some shims to it. Add something to it, and then, of course, add it to the other side. And you can always double check everything with straight edges before you nail the heck out of it. Make sure that your treads and risers are nice and straight. If you're going to be carpeting a stairway like this or wood flooring using hardwood, something like that, you might just need to be close enough. The hardwood is going to, you can use the hardwood to make everything straight. And if the carpeting, you carpet around something like this, you're probably going to be close enough. So that is it. If you have any questions, comments, feel free to leave them in the comment area.